basketball. We're joined by Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio. You just heard, you knew no much about him, Doug. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but we just got the news about Dale Bonner from Fairmont State in the transfer portal coming to Baylor.
Yeah, transferring up a level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a major step up. But I talked to Scott about this sort of thing, not exactly about him as a player, in just that the hardest thing in both recruiting, traditionally, and portal recruiting, which is what everybody's doing now, is make sure you get your kind of guys, right? Like, look at the transfers they had. It's not that they were tremendous players. It's that they were the perfect kind of guys to succeed at Baylor for Scott in that program. Villanova experienced this when they went to their first Final Four. I think it was back, in 2004 maybe? Trying to think. Like, you look at their recruiting classes, they had the number one recruiting class because no, 2004 was Oklahoma State. Happened to Oklahoma State in 2004. Happened to Georgia Tech in 2004. They lost in the finals. Where you have this great year. Now you can recruit anybody you want, but you don't want everybody. You want the right kind of guys. And Villanova, they call them OKGs, our kind of guys. And that's what Baylor's just got to be careful of. He's definitely one of their kind of guys, though. This is not the first time. Right? This is really the third player of this magnitude to transfer up a level to Baylor. And so I think Scott and their staff, they do a good job of player evals, but not just in terms of the upside and talent, but also does he fit with how and what we want to do, how we want to do it. Now, the downside is you don't get a year in the program like you used to with transfers. Guys play right away. It's one of the reasons that so many transfers, like myself, have been successful. Because you play, and then you get a year away from it, either sitting out the school or I sat out at a junior college, and you get to really kind of self-evaluate, work on your game. You're physically and emotionally mature. Like, all of these things are important, and we're kind of skipping even that step with the new policy.
All right, Doug, we've had you on many, many times, mostly and almost always about Baylor men's basketball, but
yeah.
you know Nicki Collen from back when you were looking at where you were going to play college basketball. I believe she was at Marquette. You were visiting. And you actually even reached out to me and said, hey, I know her. Give us that history, if you don't mind, and your thoughts about what Mack Rhoades and Baylor have done with women's basketball.
Nicki and I have been friends for 24 years, and she's amazing. She's amazing. I've tried to tell everybody, anytime there's a women's job, to hire her. She's a brilliant basketball mind, and she played a really successful program at Purdue and then led the country in assists at Marquette. And then she's playing overseas in Greece. And then, her husband, Tom, is an outstanding coach in his own right. And she got on his staff at Colorado State and obviously on to Arkansas. And then, when he got fired at Arkansas, she started working at Florida Gulf Coast. And that guy's a big-time coach. She's the real deal. Look, obviously Kim was incredibly successful and super well respected in the profession and what she had built Baylor into, even before Scott. But I would say that I put Nicki as a basketball coach right up there with anybody. And they had an absolute mess in Atlanta too. You got the players and the owners, fighting in public over political stances. Yikes. But she managed it really well, and everybody likes and respects her. So I think you guys are going to love her. I think she's and it's look, the women's game, like it or hate it, is going to trend at the very top the way of the men's game, where in order to get the best players, you got to be about professional basketball. And who better than somebody who's actually been a coach of a couple of former Baylor Bears in the WNBA? And when I knew she was going to get it, I'm trying to get a hold of her yesterday. We're talking. She's like, I got to go to practice. Like, what do you mean you're going to practice? You're going to be the coach at Baylor. Like, we got to have a real practice. If I leave this job, they got to not practice. So she's awesome. Awesome. Good family, good person, great coach. You guys are in good shape. And what's crazy is the other finalist was Molly Miller, who my brother works for at Grand Canyon. She's amazing too. They had a really good candidate pool. They did a good job, and obviously I'm partial to both of them, but Nicki I've known for a long time, and she's awesome. She's an incredible basketball player.
Doug, everybody we've talked to so far today say that she is not at all intimidated to step into the expectations, to the roster and all of that. Where does she get that, in that she can not really get fazed by the fact that a Hall of Famer left, and this is a team that was, a hamstring injury and a bad call to game from probably being in the Final Four this year?
Just who she is. I mean, I don't know. You don't play at the level that she played at, and you don't coach at the level she coached at unless you have the self-confidence to be able to understand. I have a friend that calls it social jujitsu, right? Understand who's got which pressure points you push and which you don't. But no, she's not in any way. I mean, I think if you can coach pros, and I know some people you can have whatever opinion you want of women's professional basketball. Like all those women, the way she's coaching, they play overseas most of the year, and they come back for 3 months in the WNBA, and many of them are millionaires. And, if you know how to manage those egos and those expectations, you'll be fine in college basketball, especially look, if we're also honest, Kim's an amazing coach, but it kind of ran its course in terms of her personality. I think, there's probably a little bit of jealousy in that she's been winning for so many years now, Scott, but they're just now winning a national championship. And, Nicki doesn't have that ego. And maybe it's because she hasn't, won as big as Kim has. And I think it'll be a nice kind of refresh for Baylor basketball, not to take anything away from what Kim accomplished. But, there's an expression in coaching where every year you're out of place, you make an enemy. She's been there a long time. I'm sure she had her enemies. Now she gets to start over, and Baylor gets to keep going. So, I mean, I know that all of the candidates, like I talked to both her and Molly, and they were both like, they know what recruits they know what kids that they had to meet with immediately to make sure they keep at Baylor. They know what's going on in the transfer portal. They know in recruiting. Like, I think you'll be in good shape there. It will be hard. Like, yeah, I mean, there's going to be some adjustments in style of play. But the other thing is, like, one of her points of focus is player development. And, remember, she understands how to implement a system that's much more kind of a pro model. And I think you'll get a better buy-in from these players going, hey, this is the same stuff you're going to run in the WNBA than you will otherwise. I think it's one of the reasons she got the job.
Yeah, kind of touching on that note, Doug, how would you describe her style and kind of her preferences as far as what she likes to do on the court, offensively, defensively, et cetera?
Well, it's interesting. They had three candidates, right, at the end, and all three were very different. Molly Miller was a press and trap and run, and almost old school Arkansas kind of a lot of run and jump even in the half court. Nicki's more kind of like a traditional. I mean, it's really what you see is what you get in terms of, like, even in the NBA or the WNBA. You're talking spread ball screens, isolations at the elbow, and she coaches just like NBA coaches coach. So, I mean, are you absolutely going to play all out, what to the wall pressing style? No, that's not her style. But they'll get after it, and they'll run really clean offensive sets and play fast because she's used to playing with a shorter shot clock and much greater pace. I mean, the adjustment she's going to have to make, I think, is that when you're in professional basketball, almost if you run a play and somebody comes open, they're making the shot.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's a crazy thing for anybody who's been in high school or college, the college game. You run a play, you're like, well, we ran a play, we ran it next year. They missed the shot. You run something, get somebody a look in professional basketball going in. So there's a bit of adjustment in terms of how people load the court a little bit more defensively. The rules are a little bit different defensively. So there'll be some adjustments there. But if you ask me how she's going to play, I mean, if you watch her games, I mean, very clean. She uses a lot of the European flair from her time playing overseas. And it looks more like a professional offense than it does a college offense.
Doug, you said you met her 24 years ago. Could you see then, like, the leadership skills, the ability, the passion, all that? Yeah,
she's big time. I mean, you just most when you visit college campuses, and I did. Remember, I was recruited twice, and So, I mean, you just gravitate towards people. And, that was kind of my path as well. I mean, it got diverted when I got into broadcasting, where I always assumed I'd be around it and be coaching it, whatever. But yeah, I mean, she just has that's actually how I think we met. I played pickup ball in the gym with the guys, and then we were watching basketball, and she was just kind of like hanging out, and I was like, who is that? And why is she talking about basketball? Like she's like, and she's part of the coaching staff. Like, oh, she's a women's point guard. No, she has always been this way. She's always been wired. Yeah, she grew up in Platteville. When she grew up in Platteville, that's when Bo Ryan was there winning all those national championships. I mean, she's been around the hoop her whole life. So she's got a great personal story, and she's just, I swear by her as a person. She's an excellent person, which you need in a place like Baylor. She's the real deal.
And the final thing as well is how excited was she about this opportunity when you were talking to her?
Out of her mind. Out of her mind. Out of her mind. I was like, look, there's only, I don't know how many teams there are in the WNBA. There's not a ton of those jobs. And so, when she got it, and she was, her first year, she's coach of the year, she was very, grateful, whatever. But to go to one of the 2 or 3 biggest coaching jobs in women's basketball, considering they had, all you have to think about, all the mess they had last year, then you combine the mess last year with an ownership change. And with the ownership change, then they fired the GM who she'd worked with, and she's getting ready for a season. She's like, I don't really know what we got here. And she's done very well in free. And that's one of the reasons I know she'll be a good recruiter. Not like she'd done it before when she recruited in college. And Tom, I think, is, he's basically done his own recruiting service since he's been out as head coach. So they'll be all over that. But, basically free agency in the WNBA is recruiting. Everybody's making about the same amount of money. You got to convince them that what you're doing is going to help them win, and they're going to enjoy it, and you're going to have a good kind of atmosphere and culture about you. So, but yeah, she's out of her mind. I can't even believe, I'm going to be the coach at Baylor.
That's awesome.
You watch him in the fight. It's like one of those things you think that the program's synonymous with women's basketball right now. Obviously, it's been UConn forever. It's like UConn and then Baylor, more so than Tennessee, even because it's been so many years since Tennessee's there. It's really, it's a remarkable 180 for her, considering the past, a week ago or a week and a half ago that she thought this season was going to go down. So it's pretty crazy.
Doug, thanks for reaching out to me, and thank you for your time on a little bit more. We've heard from a former general manager with the dream, a player who's on the roster, Mac Rhodes today, Michelle Vopel, and now you, to give us some perspective. We'll hear from her tomorrow. Thanks for your time.
Gosh, she's awesome, and I appreciate it. And Bears they got another good coach just to add to this. Me.
No question.
We got good coaches in Stillwater. We're fine. We're okay. We'll be okay.
I really like your men's basketball coach. Thanks for your time. No question about it. That's, of course, Gundy does a good job in football as well. That's Doug Gottlieb. How about that? Out of her mind, from coaching a WNBA team, which there's only a handful of them.
Quick,
to coaching,
name how many?
Yeah, 10?
12, right?
12, 14?
12.
12? Okay. Yeah.